Welcome to Eat Sleep Nerd, a podcast where you can check out, go AFK, and relax with us as we discuss all things nerd. Comic books, video games, movies, TV shows, and anything else that gets geeks more worked up than James Gunn having to stick to a deadline.
Welcome to episode number 42. I'm your dorky DJ, Corey Winter, and as always, I am joined by my nerdy brother, Josh Winter, and our geeky friends, Jason Summer and Christian James. In this episode, we dive into the nerdy news to discuss Rick and Morty moving forward without Justin Roiland, Naughty Dog moving on from Uncharted, Nvidia's always EyeContact tech, Amazon making a Tomb Raider TV show, and more. And later in the show, I'll be reviewing Forspoken and the Dead Space remake. Plus, we continue discussing HBO's The Last of Us with our review of episode 3. And before we get into the show, do not forget to share this show with everyone and go click that little subscribe button on any podcast app or YouTube that you're watching this or listening to this show on, and follow us on social media at Eat Sleep Nerd, except for on Twitter, which is at Eat Sleep Nerds. So, Jason, welcome back, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's good to be back. Missed you guys.
Are you doing well? Are you actually doing well?
I am. I'm saying I'm probably about 70%. So I had a little medical thing going on. Yeah, that's passing. 2.0 and go. Yeah, I had a little medical thing going on. Spent a couple weeks in the hospital, and got out this week. And so I would say till about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm good. And then about that time, I am out. So, like there's nothing. Like it's like the battery just was working fine, and it said, and I'm in bed, done.
Yeah, that's me every day without going to the hospital.
Okay, touche. I think that's a lot of us, actually.
So I have to ask, if you were to die, would you be okay in your afterlife if we moved on with Eat Sleep Nerd without you?
I would expect that you would.
Okay, good.
Better question.
Yeah, I would. No, absolutely.
Could we make a soundboard of your common phrases and replies and continue to use you?
Yes.
Postpartum?
Yeah. I mean, you could make it live on as long as you like. I wouldn't worry about it. I think that'd be funny. Thanks for wondering about the death thing. That's
yep.
Yeah. It's a little dark, but
you were in the hospital for a long time.
Yeah. I might have been a little worried there for a minute. No. This stuff is fun. It's good. I like that we're doing it, and you guys clearly enjoy it too. So why stop it? Just do a memorial episode for me and just move on.
Wow. All right. Yeah. Just one episode.
Just one episode.
I don't want to take up more space than I'm worth,
Wow.
By the way, if I die, I'm going to get cremated. And I'm going to get like this little Superman urn with the S on it. It'll stand for summer.
We could put him next to all of our action figures.
Yes. They'll be like, oh, what a cool Superman logo. Thanks. That's our friend.
Say hi to Jason, by the way.
So Jason, since this is your first time back in a couple of weeks, what have you been geeking out on, if anything at all? Maybe you've just been sleeping a lot. But
guys, absolutely nothing.
Okay,
I've been pretty much down. So now I did
pretty tied up.
Yeah. Now I did go ahead and I got a Nintendo Switch.
Nice. Did you end up getting the OLED one?
Mm-hmm, I did.
Good.
So that I had, some things to do while I was there. I really wasn't feeling up to doing much of anything, so I didn't do much, but I did start playing Breath of the Wild.
Nice.
Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yep. Feels like a very Jason-y game.
It's one of the best games I've ever made.
Yeah,
I wasn't
open world role playing. No. He's right. He's spot on. Got it. Already back. I'm good when Josh is right. Damn it. Okay. Anyway.
Best-selling shirt on the store.
So it's pretty fun. It has a lot of throwbacks to like the old sounds from the original game. Like when you open boxes and open doors and get the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
That's your takeaway, is the sound?
It's nostalgic.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah. Well, but it also kind of,
I feel like there's so much more to that game than just the sounds, but okay.
No. I mean, but it stands out compared to the rest of the game. Like it looks so much more advanced than the older games, but you have like these older, it almost sounds 8-bit sounds on not all of them, but just the iconic ones. So it kind of stands out.
Yeah.
But anyway, good game so far. If you haven't played it, it's an older game, but I do recommend it. And so, yeah, that's what I geeked out on. That's it.
Excellent for long hospital stays.
Yes. Do invest in some sort of portable unit. Yeah.
Yes.
What about you two? Have you guys been geeking out on anything this week?
No.
Kind of.
Okay.
So with my job, I get home at 11 o'clock at night.
That sucks.
Yeah, I know.
And yet you're here at 8:30 in the morning. Proud of you.
Yeah, I know. This is the commitment. But for some reason, they play Next Generation on TV late at night.
Okay. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like where this is going.
So usually when I get home, it's like just coming on, like the little marathon they do late at night. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm not really sure where it lies in the story because I can't tell like what season.
How long is Worf's hair? No, seriously, it grows.
No, yeah.
Kind of short the last time I watched.
So you're probably towards the
So we're in 3 or
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
That's
Like
cool.
it's old enough now that it's showing its age.
Yeah.
But it was so good.
Yeah.
And it's like it is easy to overlook its dated effects and stuff. And they're not even that bad. Like even for modern TV, like they're not atrocious. So no, that's exciting. I'm excited that you're doing that.
Yeah, it's really weird to see Patrick Stewart
Not
so
old.
upright.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh wow, he's so spry.
Well,
Love that.
so see, I have the opposite experience now because I've been plowing through the next gen so hard that every time I see modern Patrick Stewart, I'm like, he's so frail.
Right.
He's so old.
Yeah.
He's like a piece of paper now.
Yeah. Kind of like Harrison Ford. Every time I see modern
Yeah.
Harrison Ford,
Yep.
I get a little bit of a shock. In my head, he's still like 45.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, I've been enjoying that the past couple nights.
Okay.
it's a good one.
So, Josh, you say nothing, but your kids have recently gotten into Lego. And this is like a monumental moment for me as an uncle.
Ooh.
No, they have. They've gotten into Lego. Harrison, especially the older one, he's very excited about it. And I think that appeals to some of the autistic tendencies in him because he can just sit there and take things apart, put them back together. Him playing with Legos is just looking at the Legos. And it's really cool because, I mean, he's just beaming. He's so happy. Philip, on the other hand, very much wants to crash them and roll them around. And it's still a win, though, because for the most part, he's keeping them out of his mouth.
Yeah.
He's still
Philip's
very,
just a little bit too young for them, but as long as you monitor him, he's good.
fine. Yeah. But he's just mouthy. He's mouthy in general. He like everything goes into his mouth. He's not allowed to play with him by himself. Harrison's fine. I don't worry about that at all. But Philip, I have to be like in front of him when he's playing. But yeah, they're loving it. They're excited. I don't know if I'm going to spend a lot of money getting like sets anymore because they just rip them apart. Like I wasted a whole day of my life putting together a police station.
Yeah, the sets might have to wait a little bit longer.
And it's just in shambles.
Yeah.
And that's how he wants. He's like, Daddy, they're building a traffic light. Cool, bro. Like, sure. So
I've been having fun with that. So this week, obviously, I played through Forspoken in the Dead Space remake, but also I threw in a third game in there somehow. So
you can only have so much time on the show, Corey.
sorry. So this is not a review. I just very quickly tried this game. So during Xbox's game showcase this past week, they did talk about those 4 big games they said they were going to talk about. So
Sure.
Forza and all those other ones.
Sure.
But they actually had a 5th surprise game that no one even knew about. Like it didn't leak or anything. So during the show, they announced a brand new game, but also it released that day. It was called Hi-Fi Rush. And in the agenda, I put Hi-Fu Rush, which is not correct. It's Hi-Fi Rush. This is such an amazing game. And it's so weird that it was like a surprise release because it is like quadruple A level game. And it's so stylistic. It is an action rhythm game. And so think Jet Set Radio meets Guitar Hero meets Ratchet and Clank.
Oh.
And it's so cool. It's presented as an anime, so like it's very stylized, it's very beautiful, and like the cutscenes, it feels like you're watching like a classic anime show. It's so well put together. But the gameplay, it's all based around rhythms. Like the entire game, it's nonstop background music, and the entire environment of the game reacts to the beat of the music. And so the entire environment is pulsing at the beat of the rhythm, whatever the song is playing. Your character, every single step he takes that you're controlling is in beat of the song. Every single swing like you take during fighting is in beat with the song. And it is just so amazing. Like, so like the idea of the game is that everything you do, every single action is to the tune of the music. And like they actually use like big songs too. Like I'm pretty early into the game, but like they were using like 9 Inch Nails and stuff like that. Like it's so amazing. It's so much fun.
That sounds
it's
kind of
one
fascinating.
Of those games. It is fascinating. I definitely say try it, even if it doesn't sound like your type of thing. Just it seems like something you have to experience. Like just give it like an hour. Like just play that first chapter just to see what it's all about. Because like it sucks you right in. And it's just one of those games like you can just sit back and enjoy. Like you don't have to focus too hard on it. But it's so much fun. I highly, highly, highly recommend. I'm not going to do a full review because I haven't finished it yet. But if I were to do like a review in progress, 5 out of 5. This is an amazing game.
Well, with that description, I feel like I have too much ADHD for that game.
I don't want to feel overwhelmed.
I don't know. I mean, it's fun. I say try it. Oh, the big thing is that it's free on Game Pass. It launched free on Game Pass. So,
there's the kicker.
Yeah. So definitely go try
But it's only on Xbox.
For free.
It is only on Xbox and Microsoft PC. Windows. Yeah, PC. Yep.
Got it.
Personal computer.
Yep.
Get out of here, Apple. Nobody wants you.
Do you guys want to get into the nerdy news?
Hit it.
All right, we have lots of stories this week, but we have one big breaking story as of this week. So, I know a lot of us here on this team are big fans of Rick and Morty, but Justin Roiland has been let go from his duties at Adult Swim's Rick and Morty TV show. So, Adult Swim has ended its relationship with Rick and Morty co-creator, executive producer, and voice actor Justin Roiland following the news that he has been charged with domestic violence. The network announced the decision in a tweet on Tuesday, just a couple of weeks after news of the charges came to light. The statement added that Rick and Morty will still continue and that the team is working on season 7. Deadline Hollywood first broke the news of Adult Swim cutting ties. Blah, 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 blah. So yeah, big story is just that Justin Roiland, the voice of the 2 main characters on Rick and Morty, as well as one of the main writers and creators of the show, is no longer attached to the show. So thoughts, takeaways from this? As big fans of the show,
it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Oh, okay.
It's going to be okay. I mean, first off, there's 1.5 million vocal artists out there who would love this gig. And I mean, heck, you can just hop on TikTok and hear 1 million impersonators that do excellent Rick and Morty impressions.
Yeah.
So like, as far as the performance goes, I'm not worried about it. And even if you've been watching any of like the behind the scenes stuff, like I know if you buy the seasons, like on any of the digital streamers, like if you buy it on Vudu or if you buy it on Amazon or anything like that, a lot of the episodes have like a little behind the scenes snippet afterwards. It's like 2 or 3 minutes. But even as far back as season 4, Roiland and Dan Harmon, who's the other co-creator, who also did like Community and stuff like that, which is another one of my favorite shows. They were both saying that, again, even as far back as season 4, they were kind of hands off on the day-to-day stuff. And you know, they definitely had like they had more of a showrunner standpoint where they're not worried about directing individual episodes. In fact, neither one of them has directed an episode since season 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I mean, they're just there to just kind of steer the ship a little bit. And again, Dan Harmon, I would argue, just based on his other experience, was probably the one who's doing more steering than Justin Roiland.
So here's my take. So a lot of people have been calling like, hey, you guys should just end the show now. I mean, the big guy's done with it. But like, first of all, Justin Roiland is not the only one working on the show. Like, this is a show that employs hundreds of people, if not thousands.
Yeah.
Plus,
you're casually calling to fire hundreds of people.
Yeah. Plus, he was not the only show. Like, he was a co-creator. Like, it was still Dan.
That's what I'm saying.
He was also in charge of this show.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it sucks, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
I feel like as long as the script is there, it'll be fine.
Which again, most of them, both he and Dan Harmon, did not have a ton of writing credits the last couple of seasons. So I'm just not that worried. I'm betting it's not going to make as huge a difference as some people are worried about.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're pretty good at like calling out voice actors that are impersonating someone that are just very clearly not the same voice actor. Mm-hmm. Are you worried about that? Where it might be close, but not close enough to where it kind of takes you out of it? Because like they have pretty iconic voices at this point.
I mean, we also have technology to mix that into the right voice.
Yeah.
Because if someone can get close enough, they just do that in editing.
Yeah. Fix it in post.
Yeah. Which will suck, I'm sure. But at the same time, the show must go on.
Yeah, I was thinking that would probably be the only issue that could arise out of this at this point. Because I had a sense as well that, they were basically just doing voices for the most part at this point. So just having a weird sounding Rick or Morty might be the only fallout from this.
But to your point, Corey, they now have a huge back catalog of episodes. And so, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, yes, that means you're going to have to nail it, but also you've got a lot of reference work to make sure that you nail it. You know what I mean? Like there's so many performances. I mean, it's got to be 10 episodes a season. They've got 6 seasons in the can. So you've got at least 50 to 60 episodes. Like you're going to know if it doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And especially I think they've retained most of their staff since the beginning. Someone will be there and be like, bro, you didn't quite nail it. Get back in there. Try again. I think it'll be okay.
I'm thinking of Batman Arkham Origins, where Troy Baker was voicing the Joker, and he was basically trying to do
he was doing Mark Hamill.
Hamill, but it was like just slightly not Mark Hamill, to where it was like, oh, that's kind of distracting.
Oh, see, I wasn't distracted by it.
No, well, I was. So the news continued. Obviously, the Adult Swim Rick and Morty news was the first to break, but Justin Roiland has also been removed from his position at Squanch Games. And I say removed, he actually resigned prior to Adult Swim letting him go of Rick and Morty. So Squanch Games, the studio he founded for video games, he resigned from that. Hulu has also removed him from his work on Solar Opposites as well as Koala Man. So all of these shows and video games that Justin Roiland has been involved in, he is no longer. But they're all moving forward without him. So at least the work he has started to create that we have all enjoyed is continuing on without him. It's like, if you are a fan of Rick and Morty, if you are a fan of the Squanch Games video games, you can still enjoy them. It'll just be without his involvement. So
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
I mean, it'll either be okay or it won't. Like,
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah. So this is a fun story that I want to bring to us for a very specific reason, but I'll start it off with this. So GoldenEye 007 comes to Nintendo Switch Online and Xbox Game Pass this week. It's actually already live. So as of January 27th, it is now on Game Pass. So GoldenEye 007, the N64 classic. You can actually go play this now on Switch and Xbox. So do you guys remember this game? You know, that little game back in the 90s?
Yeah.
Redefined shooters. Yeah.
I was really terrible at it.
So do you guys remember the pause music? Like when you pause the game?
Boom, doom, doom, doom. Yeah, there it is.
That right there?
That is a jam.
I like how you had that set up.
Yeah. So the reason why I have this set up, I'm just going to let this play, was that the composer on the original N64 GoldenEye 007 game came out and said that this epic song that everyone remembers from this game, he wrote in literally 20 minutes.
Nice.
And it's a jam.
Yeah.
It is.
Like he put his whole foot in this.
Yes.
It has that 90s dance spin on it that everybody was doing in the 90s for old songs.
Yeah.
Like the Mission, if you remember the Mission Impossible.
Yeah. This is actually one of my favorite TikToks where like a guy busts into a room of musicians. And he's just like, hey guys, I'm the executive producer on this little game GoldenEye. I need some pause music. Doesn't have to go too hard. Just whatever. And then they're like, redefined video game music.
No, I just think that was impressive. It took literally 20 minutes. He said, you know, the entire game, he scored most of it. But like when they asked him to compose something for the pause screen, he was like, okay, let's just throw something together, because he was trying to work it into the confines of the resources that were limited on N64 consoles, because like you could only do so much, because it only had so much space you could put onto a game cartridge. And he said it had to be like super, super small.
Something that could loop.
It had to be like almost 8-bit, because it had to be a super small file size. And so this was like what he came up with in just a few minutes. So
I almost feel like he had that like in the chamber a little bit.
Maybe.
He was just waiting to do something like that.
And our next story ties into what we've been reviewing. HBO's The Last of Us has been renewed for season 2. The Last of Us has officially been renewed for season 2, HBO announced today. It follows a debut that was watched by 22 million viewers domestically and quickly became a hot topic on social media. And following the announcement, executive producer and Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann has confirmed in a tweet that the second season will follow The Last of Us Part 2 game, just as the show's first season is based on the original The Last of Us game, later rebranded as Part 1. So, yeah, more Last of Us. Obviously, it's been a big banger, big hit for the HBO, and we're getting more of it officially. After only 2 episodes that have aired, they're already like, yeah, let's get some more.
I mean,
yeah.
I saw that episode 2 had the largest second week increase of any streaming ever.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Jason, get on that.
Getting on it. Yeah. Now, I've not been completely ignorant of what's going on with the Last of Us series. It is being widely praised as one of the best examples of how to do a game to TV, game to movie conversion correctly. And look, it can be done. So I have avoided reading the articles because I don't want to hit any spoilers yet, but I've seen several. No spoilies, yes. But I have seen several articles where there's high praise, not only for how the series is being produced and created, but also, of course, for Pedro Pascal as the actor.
Yeah.
So good on them. I'm kind of impressed.
Yeah, so we're going to be working some production magic because as with this recording, like this moment right here, Jason has not actually watched the show, but by the time we get later into this episode to be reviewing episode 3, he will have watched it. There's going to be some wizardry going on. But the reason I'm excited about that is because, Jason, you have not actually played the games.
Right.
3 of us here have. So I'm actually very interested in what someone who has not played the games but is a video gamer takes away from this show. So I'm very interested to see what you take away from this.
It sucks. No. I'll certainly get caught up so we can talk about it on Monday so that we can have it in this podcast.
You will if you know it's good for you.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Oh, sorry. I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. I just got
transition.
Sorry, what was that? What? Sorry, what?
Oh.
What?
I'm getting punched with sounds.
No, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Nothing. It's just good to be back. I missed you guys.
Missed you too, Jason.
Ow.
Do one more time. All right. So from one Naughty Dog thing to the next. And I put this one on here for me because I need to take a moment. So Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann has said that the studio has officially moved on from Uncharted and is now focusing on the next chapter of The Last of Us through the new multiplayer game. In an interview with BuzzFeed, Druckmann explained that Sony doesn't pressure Naughty Dog into creating sequels just because a game is successful, and that the publisher is very supportive in letting the studio follow its passions. And he is quoted as saying, "That's not the case. For us, Uncharted was insanely successful. Uncharted 4 was one of our best-selling games, and we're able to put our final brushstroke on that story and say that we're done. We're moving on." Guys,
I like the fact that there are organizations and production teams out there where they can say, "We're done. We're not going to make any more."
Yeah, but
I like that.
Like, I agree with Jason on that. Yeah. I would rather something I love come to a satisfying conclusion than just drag a dead horse across the finish line.
Right. Like Michael Jordan should have stayed retired. Michael Jordan should have stayed retired. I mean, that was like a classic.
Tom Brady should have stayed retired.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like the Uncharted series, it was 4 games plus a little spin-off game. The main 4 games that starred Nathan Drake were fantastic. And the 4th one did have a very solid conclusion for that character. I totally agree with that. Fantastic game. And Naughty Dog makes beautiful stories. So the way that the character arc from the first game to the 4th game was a beautiful arc for him. But those are also some of my favorite games of all time. I need more Nathan Drake.
Well, it sounds like you're not going to get it.
I need a fix.
Yeah. Just play the games again.
Right?
So I have. I played all. I played Uncharted.
It's just there's no more.
So Uncharted 3 is like literally my number 1 game of all time. I've played that one like 20 times through. Plus, I also keep remastering it. So every time it remasters, I can start over from my trophies and keep collecting them. Anyway, beside the point. So I need more. I love those games so much. It's the perfect combination of adventure and combat and cinematic storytelling. Plus, the writing is fun. Like, the main character, Nathan Drake, is hilarious. I want more.
Well, you're not going to get it.
So that's...
Just go watch the Tom Holland movie. It's the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Mark Wahlberg is Sully.
So that movie actually was fine by itself. It was just not Uncharted. But so the interesting thing is, back in 2015, Neil Druckmann, same guy that said all this about Uncharted, he said that in 2015 he doesn't know what they're doing next. But at the same time, they were actually already actively working on The Last of Us Part 2. So he kind of like played a fast and loose with what he did not know. So Last of Us was already in development for a year prior to him saying they're not sure what they're working on next. So this could be a fast and loose where he's like, we don't know, we're never going to work on Uncharted again, but they might actually be working on it in secret if they have something good. Or Sony owns the rights to Uncharted. So if Naughty Dog does not want to continue working on Uncharted, Sony can go put that IP on some other developer and continue making Uncharted. Because, as even Neil Druckmann is saying, it's one of Sony's best-selling franchises of all time. They're not just going to let that one go to the wayside. Like, if they think it could keep selling games, they're going to go make some more Uncharted games. And you know what? I'm okay with that because I'm greedy.
You must really be upset about this.
I need
you were
more
advocating things,
Uncharted.
You were advocating things that Sony do that we suggest that nobody does.
I don't even
don't
care
move a property to a different
game.
Studio.
I don't even care. I need my fix. Wow. I need my treasure hunting fix. I am in a place in life where I am not getting my national treasures. I'm not getting my Tomb Raiders. I'm not getting my Uncharteds, and those are my genre. I need the treasure hunting action adventures, and I'm not getting them, so I need more Uncharted. Whoever wants to make it, just give it to me.
I'm sure that you could find other less known archaeological adventure games.
I have tried.
That are probably just as good.
They all suck.
Do they suck, or are they just not Uncharted?
They're just not Uncharted.
But okay.
When did the first Uncharted game come out?
It was a PS3. I don't think it was a launch game. It was early PS3. I think 2006.
2006?
Maybe
so in 3 years it's going to turn 20? That's what they're doing.
What?
They're just going to wait another couple of years and they're just going to reboot the franchise.
I hope so.
So just hold on to your pants there.
I just need more Uncharted.
Okay. I don't know what else to tell you, bro.
Nvidia has released its most unnerving AI-powered software yet, a new camera feature added in a recent update to the Nvidia broadcast app that edits a live feed so that it looks like someone is always looking into the camera, even if that's not the case. It's an unsettling feature that had me shouting and screaming the first time I saw it in real time. I'm just reading this article. Known as EyeContact, the feature debuted earlier this month as part of the 1.4 patch for NVIDIA Broadcast, software that enhances video for live streaming and video conferencing. NVIDIA said in a blog post that EyeContact is intended for content creators who want to maintain eye contact with the camera at all times, even if they're, say, looking at notes or a script off screen. So I'm sharing this video with the three of us here. I'll be sharing this link in the show notes so our listeners can go see this for themselves. But yeah, so this video that we're looking at is a side-by-side comparison of the original video without the eye contact turned on and the eye contact turned on with NVIDIA's new broadcasting features. So we can see here that on the original video, the speaker is looking below the camera. With eye contact turned on, he is always looking at the camera.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
I mean, nope. I get it. It's just, that's weird.
It's a little creepy.
Yeah. Eye contact over video doesn't matter. But like, eye contact is like important in real life. I don't care if you're looking at me in your like makeup video.
Like imagine, like I don't know exactly how it works, but imagine we're sitting here in our studio. I'm looking at you guys, but the camera's over there, so it always like picks up my eyes.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, if you're talking to someone else in the room and your eyes are on the camera, that's weird.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's how it works, but that'd be creepy.
My first thought was the avatar that interacts with you in Detroit become human. Yeah. On like the load screen or whatever. One of the things that I noticed was that the eyes had realistic movements. Like they darted, they looked around, they weren't fixated on anything, which really enhanced the realism of that avatar. And it was fascinating and creepy in a way that you knew it was computer generated, but it looked so realistic. And one of the things that's in contrast to one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of gaming and a lot of even computer graphic or CGI movies is that one of the most unrealistic things are the eyes, because they don't they don't mimic that thing that we do as living creatures, where they're constantly taking in information. So removing that aspect from a personal interaction, where we're becoming less and less actually personal interactions, I think is a really bad thing, and is also just discomforting. So I'm not a fan of that.
So you're not going to be using it yourself?
Oh, hell no. 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 Anyway, I get the point, but I get what they're trying to do, but I think it's pointless.
See, looking at the title of that article, I was thinking about like certain cameras nowadays that have an eye detect.
Yeah.
And so you really don't have to really try to focus on things really well, because it picks up on a person, sees their face, contacts onto the eye. Because like you can focus on like somebody's face, like say that the focus is their nose, and then just past their nose is out of focus. So it's really annoying. So you have to like catch people's eyes sometimes. So now the AI in certain cameras will catch a person's face, get to their eye, and everything's in focus. And now it's to the point where they got to human eye detect and animal eye detect. So if you're like a wildlife photographer, you can catch a bird's eye or some kind of.
But see, are you really catching the eye? Because it's not actually their eye; it's a computer generated eye.
Yeah.
Well, no, on the camera, it's a real eye.
Yeah,
he's talking about on like DSLRs and stuff like that. The computer looks for the eye to focus the image.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. But in this case, it's not the real eye.
Not the real eye, yes.
I don't know. This just feels like a neat thing that literally no one asked for.
Yeah. I think there's also something to be said about people who have a skill to come across as natural and attentive when they're talking and when they're doing presentations, or whether they're doing their podcasting or their video casting or whatever, where you don't need assistance in making sure that you seem like you're paying attention to your audience.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect, another crutch that's being added to, again, a more and more technically supported world. Like, we're removing our need to learn how to do these things that are important with communication, like finding ways to make eye contact and finding ways to be to make that connection, whether it be directly or over the internet. So having a computer do that for you, you're like, oh, that's something else I don't need to worry about with my personal skill toolbox. So I'm also
we're already like weird because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right.
Now we're just gonna be weirder.
So
that's a very good point. Now we're just relying on computers to do everything for us. Like, I mean,
eventually we're just going to create an avatar identical to ourselves, and
Skynet.
Yeah.
Christian keeps reminding us that Skynet's on the way. Like, it's
No, I saw a TED Talk. I don't remember the guy's name, but he's that dude that's always talking about like different businesses that he's gone to observe, and like he talks about the military a lot, and what he learns everywhere he goes and how it can be applied to business. And one of his quotes that stuck to me said that as the world becomes more comfortable and hard skills, like actual skills, trades, things like that, become less important, soft skills, like being able to look someone in the eye when you talk to them, become exponentially more important.
Yeah.
Because now everybody has a college degree. Everybody has those basic things that used to set you apart don't set you apart anymore. And more often, he's noticed that all these companies he goes to visit, they're hiring people who just have the ability to communicate and just to talk to other human beings.
Yeah.
So, kind of like Jason said, this seems like something that will fly in the face of that. You can fake it when you're on a webcam, but as soon as you have to go into the office,
right,
you can't look at anyone. You can't talk to anyone. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Bet you didn't realize you were opening this little Pandora's box, did you, Corey?
I was hoping I was. I want you guys to get all philosophical with it.
It seems like such a small thing, but eye contact is one of the most important communication traits. And I think it seems like a small thing, but I also think it's a big deal, and it needs to go through a crucible at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I'm done. Ow.
The next story. After a long break, Lara Croft is on the comeback trail. The Hollywood Reporter reports that a television show about the famous video game adventurer is in development at Amazon, with Fleabag writer Phoebe Waller-Bridge attached to pen the scripts and executive produce. The Hollywood Reporter also reported that Amazon has plans to also make a new Tomb Raider movie and at least one additional video game, hoping to make an MCU-like interconnected universe. So we knew previously that Amazon bought up the rights to Tomb Raider, and Josh is giving me a look.
Well, I'm just a little confused. So, like, the fun of the MCU is that it's about all these different characters coming together.
Yeah.
They want to create an MCU about one person.
Character. Yeah.
It's the exact same thing I was thinking. It was like, but why?
Just say you want to do a TV show and have the same person do a couple movies. Like, that's fine. Not everything has to be the MCU.
Yeah. That was, as soon as I read that, I was like, hold on.
Because I was thinking, like,
too much of a good thing. Let's stop interconnecting things.
Do we need this much interconnectivity? Wow, that was a long one.
That was a good one.
In everything that we watch?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I'm already overwhelmed with the actual MCU.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not been impressed with the MCU since Endgame. So, again, too much.
No, and that's a good point too. When the goal becomes interconnectingness and just having a bunch of crap tie together, it becomes more about making sure you have a bunch of crap that ties together instead of having good crap. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of like, to me, that's what Phase 4 felt like for the MCU. We were more concerned about, we're going to make 83 television shows and it still ties in, instead of someone being like, hey, half these shows suck ass.
And still we have to watch them so that we know what to expect for the next movie.
Like, right. I can't even opt out of it because I got to make sure, because it all connects together, even though half of it didn't connect together.
Because so like, what if came in to the new Doctor Strange movie?
Yeah. And it's like, I just can't. Like,
well, I read that someone said that all of Phase 4 was a changing of a mantle kind of series or saga.
I mean, yes, but also
could have been done better.
I didn't care about any of the mantles changing. The only one I cared about was New Captain America. And if we're being perfectly honest, that show was completely unnecessary because then they're in the exact same spot at the end that they were in at the beginning.
Yeah, right.
That's very true. Yeah,
that's very true.
Because he was Captain America at the beginning of that. All that happened is he felt good about it by the end.
Yeah.
He needed that character arc.
But I'm just saying, from the larger standpoint, nothing changed. So, and that was one of the better shows.
It was,
but
a good
like,
show. It was very,
yeah. I'm just, it didn't. Anyway, we tangented it.
So Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the interconnected universe is all about, because like Josh said, it's literally just one character. But the good thing is that Amazon, of all places, is probably going to be throwing money at a Tomb Raider show. Whoop whoop! Money.
I mean, Corey's like, I'm by myself.
Show or movie?
So they're making all of them.
Oh.
So Amazon movie and new video game,
TV show, movie, new video game,
whatever I just said. So we just learned actually just last week that when Marvel's Avengers is being shut down, that development team is actually being shifted over to working on Amazon's Tomb Raider game. And so we know that an Amazon Tomb Raider game is coming. This confirms it. We knew that Amazon bought the rights to Tomb Raider a while ago, and they're now confirming that they're all working on both a TV show and a movie. It's sounding like it probably won't start, most likely, definitely not Angelina Jolie, but likely not Alicia Vikander either, the most recent Tomb Raider in live action, which is sad because she did a great job. But yeah, so like I was just saying a few minutes ago, I need more action adventure treasure hunting things in my life, and hopefully this kind of fills that void. And Amazon, of all places, I hope does a good job. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings has claimed that they have never canceled a successful show. And he is quoted as saying, a lot of these shows were well intended, but talk to a very small audience and a very big budget. The key to it is that you have to be able to talk to a small audience on a small budget and a large audience on a large budget. If you do that well, you can do that forever.
Our tests show that was a lie.
So my thing is like, what's their definition of successful show?
See, and that's why, I mean, this is almost like a conversation not even worth having, because Netflix doesn't release hard numbers.
Yeah.
They just don't. So the numbers are whatever they say they are. So I personally think it's more like as soon as your budget gets too big and you're not bringing in a gajillion new viewers, they're going to cut it.
Yeah.
And so, but again, we'll never be able to prove that. We'll never be able to disprove that because they don't release viewership numbers. We are going to find out in 20 years that Netflix was the biggest Ponzi scheme on the face of the planet. Because we've talked about this a little bit before. Netflix gets almost unlimited loans. They get tremendous backing in stock options. And it's all because everyone thinks Netflix is making a lot of money.
Yeah.
We don't actually know how much money Netflix is making. We don't know which shows are actually getting watched. We don't know because the only numbers they give are their numbers. And it's sporadic. When they have a really big show, they let us know that 8.5 trillion people watched it.
They don't even do that. They tell us hours watched. They don't really tell me how many people actually watched it.
Yeah.
It's like, what if one person's watching it like 10 times?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So like, I don't
like the top 10 list that you see every time you log in seems made up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, who's actually watching this much for it to be number one? Like, I don't get it.
Hey guys, what do you know? The 6 shows that we're advertising are in the top 10 list. Who'd have thought?
Too Hot to Handle's number 5? No. But yeah, that's kind of like Tesla, because like Tesla seems like they're making a lot of money. They're doing a lot of like technologically advanced things. But like, if you really look at a Tesla, poorly made.
Yep.
Like the dashboard's really not in. The seams on the car are really like
it's sleek,
everywhere,
but it's not. That's beside the point. Yeah.
But no, it's the same idea though. You're exactly correct. Tesla is worth a fortune because people agree that one day we think it's going to be worth a fortune.
Yeah.
It's not because it's worth a fortune right now. It's because we have hope that this is going to redefine the car industry. And in some ways it has. But I think it's the exact same thing as Netflix. Netflix, I'm telling you, we're going to find out later on, was a complete scam.
Yeah, I feel like they went away from the mail-in movie thing, try to get into streaming too fast. Because yes, they did it first, but everybody else started doing it better. I think they were like, we're Netflix. We're be fine.
I think it was legit until the goal became for them to have their own content.
Yes. When
they were just a streaming service that brought you your favorite stuff, I think it was pretty legit.
Yeah.
But ever since they started releasing 873 pieces of new material a day, there's just no way. Like the math doesn't math.
Not mathing.
This some of it has been exceptional content.
Yeah, that's not to say they've never had a banger.
But
like,
you're right. I think you're right. They should have completely just really limited what they put out. Like, have like a limited team that does limited releases and then just keep streaming and everything else that's not original content. I think you're right on that. They overdid it.
Yeah. And like I said, it's just soon that bubble is going to pop because there's no way their debts don't grossly outweigh their assets.
Yeah. There's
just no way, especially when they're hemorrhaging viewers.
The United States of streaming.
Yes. Look out for our streaming documentary.
Aren't they the most expensive streaming service right now?
I think
if you go by like top
service?
bracket subscription rate, yes.
Yeah. And if you're going by the first plan without ads, like the standard plan without ads,
I still think it's them.
It's who just went up in price like last week? HBO. Like they're inching them out by like 50 cents.
HBO.
Like Netflix is definitely up there. Yeah.
But HBO's top tier is still cheaper or still a little more expensive
than Netflix's middle tier.
Like when I'm paying for it, it's like $25
middle tier.
I'm with the 4K option and all that stuff. So
I'm going to be able to watch it on 7 different TVs
at the same time for
some
reason.
Mm-hmm. I party view with myself.
Yeah.
All right, and now the inaugural portion of Corey's 80 episodes of video game reviews. You got to stick to it now.
Yep.
80 episodes in a row. Video game reviews forever. Video game reviews forever. Corey.com. Video games. Videogames.com/login Corey. Video games forever. Corey's video game.
_ Swifty.
I didn't realize he was going to vamp the intro. I regret tasking him with
Why would you
this.
not expect that?
Corey's character arc for the next 80 episodes. Corey will be kicking it off with a twofer. He's going to be hitting it up with Forspoken and then lead directly into his favorite video game of all time, the Dead Space remake.
So, Forspoken. So,
I mean, I knew it was going to be trash.
Okay, so next game.
I have conflicting feelings about this game. And I actually have 2 scores in mind for this game. And I'm going to decide which one it is by the time I get done talking about it. So I had 2 like polarizing experiences with this game. But by the time I finished it, I did beat the entire story mode. So like it was a good 20 hours I put into this game. So I did the story mode plus I dabbled in all the different side quests. So I got a good feeling about this game as a whole. By the end of it, I actually had a really good time. I actually really enjoyed the game. I actually walked away from it hoping we'd get a sequel that at least addresses some of the pain points I had. But
I feel a big old butt.
I want more of this game. But
There it is.
the first third of this game, I don't understand what happened. It felt like the first third of this game was made by a completely different team that made the second 2/3 of this game.
I mean, that might have been.
It might have
what
been
happened.
true.
Yeah.
Because really, this game, so to set this game up, it's an action RPG where parkour and using magical spells is the core game mechanic. It's a big open world, and you are, to set up the story, you are this wayward soul, Frey, young adult, about early 20s, and it actually just opens up where you are in this courtroom, and you very quickly realize that Frey has gotten into legal troubles multiple times. She has, done thievery and all this fun stuff. And you quickly realize that she's also gotten caught up in some gang activities. Like this gang is out for revenge for something that she didn't do. And long story short, she gets sucked into this magical world. So like she starts off in New York City and she gets sucked into this magical world after finding this magical like bracelet / cuff thing that gives her magical powers. And it actually kind of acts like a companion. It's actually sounds a lot like Jarvis. So if you just picture Paul Bettany, that's kind of what he reminds me of. And the core gameplay mechanic, so there's really 2. It's the parkour abilities. Like it's big open worlds. You can use parkour to traverse the environment in any way you see fit. So you can climb any mountain, you can climb anything. And the other thing is using magical powers to fight enemies. So think Ratchet and Clank for adults. So when you're in the middle of a battle, using all your magical spells all at once, it can create this big havoc of a scene of a battle. And it's really fun. Like in the middle of a battle scene, you can use parkour to like bounce off of walls while throwing fire at someone. Then you can hop over another enemy and throw water at them, and lightning's coming from all over the place. It's a really fun game, and it actually gets into the core element of this game.
Cool.
But you don't get to that until like 5 hours into the game.
Interesting.
So it's a 12 chapter long game, and each one, the chapters vary depending on how long you took to like go do like little side activities and stuff. But if you're just playing the story mode, each one roughly an hour, some a little bit shorter, some a little bit longer. You don't get to start really going out into the open world and using your magical abilities and using your parkour stuff until late chapter 4, early chapter 5. The first third of this game, so about 4 hours, if not 5 hours, if you're doing the side stuff, was a completely different game. And that game, in those first 3 or 4 chapters, was almost a broken experience. And I don't want to call it a broken game. It was just poorly made at times where it felt like a PlayStation 3 era game. My pain points were really big 3 things. First is that it felt disjointed and like it was just stitched together, where they went from like a 30-second cutscene to like 5 seconds of gameplay, right back to a cutscene, and then 5 more seconds of gameplay. Like it was frustrating, the pacing of it all. Like they didn't really know how to actually stitch it all together. It's like, it was really like, why was this not just one big cutscene instead of like taking me out of this cutscene, giving me control for like 5 seconds to throw me right back into a cutscene? It was frustrating because I was just like, oh, this is my time. I can actually start playing now. Oh, no, here's another cutscene. The other thing is that it felt like there were times where they were too lazy to actually animate a scene, to where it actually just, there was a scene and then it like faded to black, and then it popped up like several events later. It was like they were just too lazy to actually like stitch two things together. And early, I think it was like in chapter 2, you are in this big magical world for the first time, and you come across this castle, and it cuts to a cutscene, and Frey, your main character, looks up at the guards on this tower. And I forget exactly what she says, but like she's a very welcoming, like, hey, could you guys let me in? I'm new here. I need some help. And it looks at the guards. They don't say anything. It looks back at her, and like she's smiling and everything. And then it fades to black. And then the black comes back up, and she's inside the castle with handcuffs on. And it was not done for comedic effect. It was not like this is what's about to happen. But no, it's fake out. That's actually, no, she's in trouble. No, it really was. It felt like they didn't know how to stitch those two things together. So it was a very like fade to black, pretend what happened next, then here's what happened next.
That does seem a little...
It was weird.
Yeah.
Fast forwarding just a little bit, she's in her jail cell in the castle, and it's a cutscene, like she's talking to her Jarvis, and the cutscene ends, and she stands up from her cot in the jail cell, and you're prompted to like walk around and find your way out of the jail cell. I timed it. It was literally less than 10 seconds before the next cutscene triggered. Why did they have me walk around when they could have just made that one big cutscene? And that happened throughout the entire game. It's just like the people making the cutscenes didn't know when a cutscene should end and when it should start. And there were actually times where they didn't know what to animate, and so they threw up a little title card to kind of like illustrate what you should be seeing. Very reminiscent of Metropolis, when there was like the lost footage and they had to like throw a little title card in there to tell you what actually you were supposed to be watching. It was very much like that. 2 examples, like one, you come across these pigs that you're prompted to like feed. Instead of showing you actually feeding the pigs, it just shows you a title card saying, and Frey fed the pigs. Or like when you're supposed to be collecting some, I forget what it was, from like these magical trees.
Elderberries.
Close enough. You are triggered to, or prompted to action picking that stuff from the tree. But instead of showing you like taking the stuff from the tree, a little title card pops up saying, there was nothing found at this tree. It was very like a Pokemon type of feel. Like it just tells you what happened.
Was there any indication this game was rushed?
No, they've actually apparently been working on this for like 7 years.
That seems
lazy.
Lazy, yeah.
And then my last just big con is that, like I was saying, it kind of felt like early PlayStation 3 mechanics at times, and actually just taking us back to that castle scene. And it was a very like traditional like stealthy mission where you're supposed to like crouch down behind guards to like sneak past them while they have their backs turned. And keep in mind, this is not a turn-based strategy game. So in this instance, you are walking down this staircase, sneaking behind these guards, this group of like 3 guards. And you are directed to go hide behind these boxes. And as soon as you kneel down behind those boxes, it freezes you in place. The camera zooms past you to the guards. And the guards, all at the exact same time, all 3 of them turn around very robotically, very clumsily, and run towards you. And then 2 of them split off. One of them stays right next to the boxes, and he very clumsily turns around in place, and then he runs off. It was a very like early PlayStation 3 era mechanic. It just felt so clunky.
Yeah.
And that's just the frustrating thing, is that if I was not forcing myself to play this entire game to review it, I would have stopped playing after like an hour or 2. It was just so frustrating, so poorly made. But I'm so glad I forced myself to keep playing it. But because by the time I got to like 4 hours into it, 5 hours into it, it was a completely different game. And I did not want to put it down, because the battles, the action scenes, the big open world environment were so much fun. It was so much fun to use these big magical spells, especially because I'm not going to go into the story too much, but the idea is that you are supposed to battle these 4 magical beings to find your way back to New York City. You're thinking that if you can get all these people beat, that you can find a cure to like fix this broken universe, and you can actually find your way back to New York City. And the cool thing is that when you beat these big baddies, you actually absorb their magical powers. And so you actually, throughout the game, are adding more magical abilities. And so you start off with just like a single set. But then when you beat this first big baddie, you actually like absorb the fire magical spells. And you can actually like pick and choose in the middle of battle which set of magical spells you're using. So like the battles, as you get further into the game, you're just adding more and more. And it becomes more and more fun because you can... every single battle can be unique because of the different spells and stuff you're using. So it's really fun. So overall, I ended up having a good experience, but I cannot forgive those first 4 or 5 hours because it was just so bad. I wish these could be 2 different games. The last 2/3 of it, I wish I could give a 4 out of 5, but I can't forgive the first 5 hours of it. So I have to give it a 3 out of 5.
Ooh, that means not recommended.
Which is really sad. I wanted so bad to give it a 4. Because I wish I could recommend it, but I just can't. I cannot recommend this game. But if you just happen to find it in your inbox or like your console, play it. Just you have to power through those first 4 hours.
That's a long time to power through something to get to the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm too old to power through anything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have time for this.
You know, the first part of that, you were talking about the whole magical powers thing, magical bracelet, and parkour.
Parkour? Yeah.
Made me think about, like, is he talking about Miss Marvel?
I mean, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's how Miss Marvel ended, really.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely, I don't think that was connected, but there's definitely a similar
elements
there.
Yeah.
Can I just say I'm no longer impressed with parkour in video games?
That was the bad thing about the parkour, is that it was very simple. Like really the only way to do parkour was you just hold down circle and you could parkour over anything. Like there was no
skill to
complexity to it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm just kind of
Yeah. And that's the other thing is
we've been doing that for like 15 years now.
They build that as the big thing in this game. Like that was the takeaway of this game, is you can parkour the entire environment, but like it wasn't really that impressive. It was fun.
And again, we've been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah. Like Assassin's Creed did that a long time ago.
Exactly what I was thinking about. Yeah.
But no, it was fun. I can't recommend it, you know?
Hmm.
I wish I could. And I hope it does get a sequel that they do a much better job on.
Hopefully.
So moving into the second game I'm going to be reviewing on this episode is the Dead Space remake from EA's Motive Studios. So I've been really looking forward to this game because it is a remake of one of my favorite games of all time. And I know I say a lot of video games are some of my favorites of all time, but really Dead Space is consistently in my top 10 list of video games that I have considered the best of all time. And so just to give a little bit of backstory, so the original Dead Space game came out all the way back in 2008, and it is a survival sci-fi horror game. And it is widely considered by critics as one of the greatest video games ever made. It was widely praised for its atmosphere, its gameplay, its sound design, its story. Everything about the game was done so well, and it actually still holds up today. Actually, I played the original release, the PlayStation 3 copy of the game about a year ago, and it still held up. Actually, it held up a lot better than some games that are still getting released today. And so that kind of made me question why a remake was necessary, why it was being made at all. And so when it was announced that EA was remaking the original game, a few questions popped into my head. So the first one was, okay, why are we getting a remake of the original game instead of a Dead Space 4? Because the entire Dead Space franchise, it had 3 main games plus some spinoffs. I loved all of them. But after Dead Space 3 kind of underperformed in sales numbers, they kind of shelved the franchise. But the story didn't really have a satisfying ending. And so I have wanted a Dead Space 4 for a long time. And so when it was announced that a proper remake of the original game was coming out, I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm glad we're getting something from Dead Space, but why couldn't it just be Dead Space 4? And then my next question was, okay, the original game still holds up. Like, it still plays great. It still looks pretty great. Do we really need a remake? Ultimately, I was okay with the idea, but I was just kind of questioning why it was necessary. So kind of giving some backstory on the original game that came out all the way back in 2008. It was just setting up the idea is that you played as Isaac Clarke, an engineer who was called with your engineering team to help fix the communication systems on a mining spaceship called the Ishimura. And when your team gets there, you quickly realize something has gone terribly wrong because you can't contact anybody on this ship. And within just a few minutes of landing on the ship, you find out that the entire ship has been overrun by these deadly monsters known as necromorphs. So think alien zombies. And you find out that the only way to kill these monsters is by dismembering their limbs. So cutting off their arms and legs. So just shooting them in the torso and stuff would not stop them. And so the combat of the game was widely regarded as amazing gameplay because it was obviously very gory, very graphic, but it was extremely satisfying because you could use unique weapons that were not just traditional rifles and pistols and stuff. Like you had to use essentially engineering tools because your player is an engineer. So you used things like plasma cutters and line guns and flamethrowers and stuff. So the gameplay by itself was a fun experience, but really the entire game, the atmosphere, the story, everything about this game was such a great experience. And so I mentioned in the Callisto Protocol review that we had back in December, how it was kind of like a spiritual successor from Dead Space. But what it really missed out on, I mean, a lot of things, but the big takeaway from me was that it did not replicate the atmosphere that Dead Space did so well. And so the Dead Space game, it was horror. It was scary at times. It was tense. It was suspenseful. And a lot of that was because of the atmosphere that this game had through the entire 15 to 20 hour story campaign. It was so much. I mean, you're on a spaceship that's been overrun by monsters. Like that by itself is kind of scary, but the entire story, every single room and area of the ship that you came across was so unique from the last place you visited. And every single room, whether it was the dead bodies that were placed in a very precarious or mysterious or disturbing way, I guess is the best word, the disturbing way, whether it was that or the cryptic messages written on the walls and floors in blood, or it was the monsters coming out of ceiling vents without warning, or the creepy background music that would get louder and softer with no warning, and whether it was the flickering lights or the fog or not being able to see anything or hearing random bumps in the ceiling vents or what have you. Every single room and area of the ship that you came to was tense for different reasons. It kept finding new ways to build suspense throughout this entire campaign. It never felt like it was repeating itself. And so what made the game so special is that it was a big linear game. It was just one big cinematic story that threw in awesome gameplay at the same time. Plus, it was beautiful. I mean, for a 2008 game, it still looks good. Yes, it was a very beautiful game, especially at that time. Back then, it was a great game, but it still holds up. So I kind of question this remake. But getting into this remake, I loved every second of it. This is how remakes should work. Because at the core, this is the exact same game as the original 2008 release. And so much so that as I was playing through this remake, I couldn't really tell what was different. I knew that there were things that were different because they said there were changes from the original game, but I couldn't pinpoint them. Aside from like a few obvious things, but aside from like the big things, I really couldn't tell what they changed because they did it so organically. It felt like it was a natural fit for the game. So like it really did not, there was nothing distracting about the changes that they made. So that's a huge plus. Like that's what a remake should be, is quality of life improvements, not complete changes. And so once I finished the game, I went and read some things that they had changed. I was like, oh yeah, now that I think about it, that was different. But there were some big changes that were welcomed changes from the original game. The big one is in the original game, your protagonist, Isaac Clarke, did not speak. He was a mute character. He was a speechless character. So throughout this entire storyline of the original game, anytime that characters were speaking with your character, they were speaking at you. They were not speaking with you. They were not having a conversation. They were just communicating to you. But in this remake, the character Isaac Clarke now has dialogue. And the cool thing is actually in the Dead Space 2 and 3 games, Isaac Clarke became a speaking character. And they actually got that voice actor back for this remake to add the dialogue to this game. So actually it was a very familiar voice. It was the voice of Isaac Clarke. So that was a very welcomed change. And it had a cascading effect because, in the original game, because the characters are speaking to you, the conversation had to flow a certain way. But now that Isaac can speak, it's changed how the dialogue works. And that kind of changed how the story kind of grew. And there was more detail into it. It led to more backstory, which is actually kind of leading me to my second point, is that they added some side missions. And so in the original game, it was the story linear campaign, and that was it. But in this remake, they've actually added some optional side missions. Not a lot. It was not like a distracting RPG type of thing where there's side missions all over the place. It was, I think, 3 sets of side missions. So 3 optional storylines you could go explore. And the cool thing about them was that they added backstory to the main storylines. These were not just side missions that were there for no reason. They added something. It was a supplement. It was a complement to the main storyline. And so the big one that I found interesting was that it added a side mission that added more backstory to Isaac's relationship with his girlfriend that was a doctor on the Ishimura. And so the original game, Isaac opens up the game by watching a video that his girlfriend, Nicole, had sent him. He kind of spends the entire game trying to find her on the ship because she has been on the ship for, I think, several months, if not multiple years. And so he had not seen her in a long time. But it was not really fleshed out very well. You didn't really know what their relationship was going into it. But in this game, now that you have that added backstory via this side mission storyline, you actually got more about how the relationship, the status of the relationship going into the events of the game, which added more weight to why Isaac was putting so much weight onto finding her in the main storyline. So I loved how it added backstory. The other side mission storylines did as well. So that was a huge welcome change. And actually, because of how they had to rework the dialogue and stuff, it kind of fixed some plot holes of the original game. So it made the story better than it actually was to begin with. And it was a very good storyline to begin with. And so the other big change, and this is going to be my last big point, is that I've mentioned that the original game was linear. So when you visited an area during a chapter of the game, once you moved to the next chapter, you couldn't go back and visit that area unless the story brought you back there. But in this new game, the remake, the entire ship is open to you once you unlock it via the story. So you can actually explore the entire ship at any point in time. And the game actually encourages you to do so because they've introduced a new mechanic with security clearances. And so the entire ship is littered with locked doors, and a lot of them are locked behind certain levels of security that you can unlock as you progress the story. For example, you'll come across in the first few chapters a door that's locked behind level 3 security clearance, and you don't get that until later in the game. And so once you unlock that security clearance level, you are encouraged to go back to the original areas of the ship to go find those rooms and unlock them and collect what was ever behind that locked door, such as weapon upgrades and extra cash or health or ammo or whatever, or even collectibles that could unlock trophies and achievements. So I loved that aspect of it. I liked being encouraged to re-explore areas with new meaning and stuff like that. It added replayability to it. So overall, I am a huge fan of how they did this remake because it didn't change anything about what made the original game so special. Because the entire story, the entire core gameplay mechanics, the combat and the gore and all of that was unchanged, if not improved on. obviously the graphics are greatly improved because it's using current generation graphics and pretty good current generation graphics at that, because it's a beautiful game. And then it added quality of life things to make it a more modern game. And so I had a terrific time playing this remake. It was a fresh experience. Like I was playing this game, feeling like I was playing this game for the first time, even though I knew where the story was going. This is the blueprint for how remakes should be done going forward. It is a great game. It's still a great game with this remake. It's a better game with this remake. This is how remakes should work. Highly recommend. So I'm giving it 5 out of 5. I wish I could give it higher. 5 out of 5. So.
If you miss the NCAA games, pick up Dead Space.
Well, even then, like the gore is not that heavy. There are some disturbing scenes. I think they've actually added some more disturbing scenes than what the original had. Like there are some scenes that do feature suicidal elements because all of the crew members of the ship, they have been infected by this creature that is killing everybody. So like there are some elements where people are seen killing themselves because their minds are being corrupted. But there are so many different options in the game settings. You can actually like blur disturbing scenes, or you can set up warnings to warn you that a disturbing scene is coming up, so you can prepare yourself. So yeah, there's lots of different ways you can play this game if you're not keen on seeing these disturbing things or experiencing the horror element of it.
I don't know, man. The original Resident Evil still scares the hell out of me.
Like the dog bursting through the window gets me every time.
Yep, exactly.
I do hope this is a trend that continues, where we quit remastering and start remaking.
Yeah.
Because they could have just as easily done graphical improvements.
Yeah.
And shipped it out and called it the remake.
Yeah, it was not just a graphical improvement thing. They actually
rebuilt the game.
They built the game from the ground up. But they did it in a way where you could convince me that a lot of it really was the exact same game, just made better. Mm. Because a lot of it really was crafted in the exact same way, just better.
See, that's what I was hoping we were going to get with the KOTOR remake.
Yeah.
And
no, maybe someday. All right, let's get in to our spoiler discussion of episode 3 of HBO's The Last of Us, the episode titled Long, Long Time. So, worth noting is that Josh is not here during this little segment. He had to dip out because he's not feeling too hot, but we do have Jason in here for the first time to discuss this show.
Hey.
And before we even get into episode 3 proper discussion, Jason, I want to put you on the spot because I want to know, as someone that has not played this game, but as a video gamer that appreciates stories in video games, how are you enjoying this television show? Because you are now caught up.
I am caught up. Yeah. I'm really enjoying the show. I may not have played the game, but I do know about it and a lot of the aspects of it. So I wasn't going in completely blind. However, I don't know enough about the game to where it spoiled anything.
Yeah.
So I've been enjoying it. It's a good series so far. I really enjoyed how they're presenting what the issue is, the problem is, by having, doctors and scientists at the beginning of the episodes, the first 2 episodes, just kind of indicating how severe this threat is.
Yeah.
Or how it could be, they do a really good job of keeping the tension high, which I think is really interesting without it being overbearing. The story's good so far. I'm not lost. And, so that's my overall high level impression, just as a gamer, not playing the game going in.
One thing I have to add in with Tess.
Yeah.
Jason. How did you feel about how she went out?
Oh, are you talking about the
I am.
The tendrils in the mouth of,
like the real awkward sensual
French
transmission
kiss of fungus.
Yeah.
That was creepy. I'll say that was creepy. I was like, ugh,
the writers have expended more on why that was the case, and it's because the only times the zombies are aggressive is when the humans that they come in contact with are aggressive towards them, or they're trying to run away. But because she was stoic and just stood there and accepted it, then they approached her more calmly. And so if they're not trying to bite you, that's how they typically interact with other beings, is just through the mouth tendrils. And she stood there because she was using it as an excuse to get the lighter lit. If she had been more aggressive towards them, she would likely not have had time to light the lighter. So because she stood there and accepted the zombie approaching her with the tendrils in the mouth, she actually had more time to flip the match.
I mean, I get it. Doesn't mean it didn't weird me out.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. It was that was unsettling. I'll give you that. That was just
and for me, peak TV. Wow.
All right, so let's get into episode 3. So the long time. So we had the setup with Joel and Ellie, just them getting out into the world and coming across Joel's stash of hidden goods. So let's just start there before we get into the Bill storyline. So how are we feeling about, I guess, really just the backstory that Joel was telling Ellie about how the government dealt with the immediate aftermath of the outbreak? Because that was not really something we got. Like, pretty much nothing about this episode was portrayed in the games except for the end result about Joel getting the truck. Everything in this episode leading up to that point was pretty much unique to the television show, including the backstory of Joel telling Ellie what happened with the government and how they killed innocent people that were not infected. So how did all that come across?
Pretty accurate. The United States.
Ooh.
Like when the U.S. on blast right there. All right.
But as in, like, I'll give them that they tried. They evacuated people and tried to get them to a space to where they could try to cut it off at the knees, basically.
Yeah.
But the fact that when he added in, if there was room, and so they planned for this kind of thing, but only to a certain extent to keep a certain amount of the population still around. And, some people had to be sacrificed. And, sad, of course, and I almost thought they were going to go into that mother-daughter thing from the skeleton. You saw the clothes sitting there and it transitioned to them back in time. And I was like, oh, no.
No, it was just a nice little segue. But yeah.
I'm glad it was good. Yeah, it was a dark segue. It was a dark segue, but they didn't show it. We all knew. And that's the thing that I like, is that there's a lot of implications that are left. Like they do leave some things to your imagination, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
We're not spoon-fed everything. They showed you the clothes, and if you missed that, then you didn't quite see what was going on with the next scene.
Yeah.
Where it showed the clothes on the people, back in 2003. But, if you're paying attention, you got it. You understood what's going on. So
yeah,
I like that. They just didn't, and then they didn't show it.
Yeah. As a horror fan, most horror movies don't really get that aspect of making movies or making shows. It's like leaving it up to the audience imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the real fear comes in.
Yeah.
Or like the suspense comes in, and it's leaving it up to you to realize, or like try to find out what's going on or what's going to happen. Cause that could be anything. It's right. Like you show me rather than tell me,
Yeah. Oh, it's all about that. Show me, don't tell me. Yeah.
Right, exactly. How did you guys feel about, I'm very interested in, Ellie clearly has some demons she's dealing with. What are your guys' thoughts on how she's, interacting with her environment, particularly when we ran into our little friend down in the basement?
A little friend down in the basement. So, she has a morbid curiosity, which I'm kind of the same way. Like, if I've never been face to face with a zombie and I can tell that it's locked down, it's not gonna be able to get to me, I would probably approach that thing and kind of poke it in the eye like a very innocent little kid.
Playing with fire ants.
Yeah, exactly. So I get it. I kind of relate to that, just remembering back to my childhood. To her, a zombie's no different than a squirrel because she grew up with them. Like she grew up after the pandemic happened. So to her, a zombie is no different than just a wild animal that could cause harm.
I guess we should start calling them infected.
Yeah, I guess they never actually
for the
called
purpose
them
of
zombies.
this. Yeah, so infected, right?
And then, like, you can reference back to the other episodes too, where Joel was beating that guy up, and she was like gawking, not in like fear, but like intrigue.
Yeah,
and other instances where she'll have not a scared face, and it's like,
right,
she's got some props, but then again, like you said, she grew up in the world so that she knows nothing else, and so it's way more intriguing than scary.
And I think it's also setting us up to where we know where her character arc is going in the game, where she is a very strong.
I don't.
Well, I mean, no spoilers. She is just a very strong, independent character that is not afraid of the danger around her, which comes into play. Like she proves that she can take care of herself even without Joel around. So I think that's just kind of setting us up for that. Like she's not afraid of this zombie that's right in front of her, the infected that's right in front of her.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking when she keeps asking Joel for a gun. Like, but she already has a thing to where she won't get fully infected. But yes, there's the thing of her getting killed by something. But if she could protect herself beyond what Joel can do, why not?
Yeah. And I mean, she has mentioned she has grown up as an orphan. It's like she's had to learn how to take care of herself without parents around. So she's used to being independent. So she does not have that built-in fear of society or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. She seems disassociated, maybe a little sociopathic at times,
Maybe.
to me. But I think that's a good point, is that, everybody prior to 2003 was brought up in a normal society, and everybody after was brought up in a very militant survival type of society, which may be exactly what most kids are like.
Yeah.
She might be representative rather than an exception.
That played out pretty well at the end of the episode when they come across, or they find Bill's truck, and she is just blown away by it because she's never been inside of a truck before, and she didn't even know what a seatbelt was. And Joel was kind of like taken back by that, like, oh, how do you not know what a seatbelt is? But then he quickly realized, oh, she's never experienced a seatbelt before. No one's ever told her what a seatbelt is, so he helped her out.
Right. It was a nice little interaction, certainly.
Yeah. All right. So the big storyline of this episode, not even to the big thing yet. So old Bill, played by the Nick Offerman, most well known from his Parks and Recreation days, but he is in this show playing Bill straight from the comic books, the video game. Bill was a survivalist that in the game was portrayed as having been well prepared for this pandemic. He, had a military background. He had stashes of guns, and he created his own little compound. So that part of the TV show was straight out of the video game. But then we got a backstory on Bill that we did not get in the video game. First of all, let's just talk about the whole scene where he's experiencing the government coming through his neighborhood. He's hiding out in the basement's basement with his old school Panasonic cameras and just the way he set up the entire neighborhood. Let's talk about that scene and just how badass he was. You
hear the soldiers say, like, oh, he's not in the basement, and like, wait a minute,
where is he?
Then where is he? And like, I love the little trapdoor under the chest, in which, if you're searching, you're bound to flip something over. Like, hey, this doesn't flip over because it's attached to the floor. But I get it; it's fine.
Yeah.
But as a prepper, you'd figure that he'd have a contingency to his basement, which is also his basement seemed like not just a regular basement you hang out in.
Yeah.
It's a prepper basement.
Yeah.
But I found that to be awesome.
I think they did a good job of kind of conveying the survivalist or prepper mentality and perspectives. And they did a good job of doing it quickly without overdoing it. We're all familiar kind of with that, with those mindsets. We may know somebody who's like that. Some of us may be like that. So it's not something that we're ignorant or unfamiliar with. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I think it was a good representation.
Yeah. And so the rest of the episode was really detailing the relationship between Bill and Frank, a stranger that comes upon his compound and he gets to know really well. and they form a relationship, and it actually shows them, I think it was like 30 years worth of their relationship. Was it something like that? I know there was several
20
time
years.
jumps.
20 years.
Yeah,
20
it was
years?
the same 20 years. Yeah.
And so that was something we did not even get a hint of in the video games. In the video game, when we first meet Bill, we know that Joel and Bill have a relationship, and it's pretty spot on for what we get in the TV show, where Bill will provide contraband and stuff and supplies to the quarantine zone for Joel, and then Joel does some kind of favors in return, and we find out that Bill owes Joel a bunch of favors, but we're not really sure what those are. It was very vague in the video game. But they do have a long-standing relationship. When we first come across Bill in the video game, he just very vaguely mentions Frank in passing, and we know that they had a relationship. But he kind of skirts the idea that it was a romantic relationship. He mentions that it was just a friendship, but he says that Frank has left him. And then further on in that mission, or that chapter of the game, spoilers if you have not played the game, they come across a house where they find Frank having hung himself, and a little suicide note next to him, where in the suicide note, he actually says that he never actually loved Bill, and he was actually leaving Bill because he actually was infected. And so instead of turning into a monster, he actually just killed himself. And so Bill was distraught, but he also just played it off. So yeah, very different than what we got in the TV show, where we actually got a pretty good backstory on what Frank's relationship with Bill was. Thoughts about just the entire episode, that entire storyline? Because to me, it was like they took the intro scene from Pixar's Up, and we're like, hey, how can we make this depressing scene an hour long in live action? Like, we all know where this is going. How did we get there? Let's make everybody cry.
Yeah, just about. It was okay. So I'd like to say that, you know, a lot of people know Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec, but this man can act.
Oh yeah,
like it's like the subtle choices that he made as Bill. You know, in the video games, Bill is very hard-headed, very hard to get along with.
Bill is very much very much a jerk in the video game.
Yeah, that's a good word, jerk. Yes. Yeah. And also, like, him and Ellie didn't get along.
Correct. Yeah.
In which kind of would have liked to see that interaction in live action, especially with Nick Offerman. But like the subtle choices that he made in scenes with Frank, where he was still playing the hard-headed self, but trying to let himself be emotionally available to another person, because he as a prepper, and most of the times you'd see them being very reserved and whatnot, and just like his shrugged shoulders when Frank went in to kiss him, and like just a really awkward like first time human touch thing. I was like, that is so great.
Oh yeah,
because it could have just played out really simply, but the simple like choices that he made during all of those scenes, which is like, makes it way more emotional, because it's like you can feel his emotions at the same time. But yeah, it's definitely a change from the video games, but made for amazing hour.
Yeah, I should say, very big departure from the game, but huge fan of the change.
Yes.
Okay, so this storyline actually surprised me. This was a surprise. Because I was trying to figure out what it had to do with the game. Like this, I was like, this is a very interesting storyline to focus on for a series that's based off of a game. Now, having said that, I really enjoyed the episode. It was really good. I was completely invested in the story. Nick Offerman was fantastic. And I was a blubbering mess by the end of of their segment. So it was very good. Both of those actors were excellent. I don't know the name of the other actor.
Actually, Murray Bartlett.
If any of you out there have seen White Lotus, he's the hotel owner. Manager.
So, and this is actually probably the first time I've spent with a piece of media that focuses on a gay relationship.
Yeah.
I think it was beautiful. I I found relatability to it. I laughed at, at certain parts where, don't roll on the strawberries. I was like, don't roll on the strawberries. And the dude's like, dude, watch out for the strawberries. So, and it was relatable. And I thought they did a really good job with that. So anyway, excellent piece of TV work. It was really excellent. I kind of hope that it plays in later to some more information and more stuff in the series. I don't think it will, but I would like to know that had some more gravitas to it than just one episode.
Yeah. So the big departure, obviously just the backstory was a big departure, but in the game, Bill did not die. He helped Joel and Ellie get a car battery in his truck. But once they got the truck and escaped from the infected that were swarming the garage, he actually went back home. They dropped him off. He went back home, and they actually, in the second video game, they mentioned Bill, and he was still alive. So this was actually a big departure from that. Like in the game, he was still alive. In this TV show, spoilers, he was not. And that really took me by surprise because I really thought he was going to follow through by giving Frank the drugs and just fulfilling his wishes. So I was taken by surprise that he actually took drugs himself and they went off to die together. Like I was like, what? No, he's lying. He's gonna wake up the next morning and totally be fine. But no, they both died. They went out together.
Yeah,
and that was really sad.
Yeah, and it just makes you think like, where is it gonna go now? Because Bill was kind of integral, or say pseudo important in video games. But then, like at the end of the episode, you see the pan out of them driving away, coming through the open window. We're about to see it,
right? And then they didn't. But this was another example of them like allowing your imagination to run with it. Like they brought you to the precipice of what you might. Oh, like we're going to see these two bodies, and then they didn't. So they brought you to it, and then they're like, okay, you can figure out the rest of it.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about it. It was an hour-long storyline to showcase a person that set Joel up to get a car battery.
Yes.
Like the whole reason we got this episode was so Joel could get a car battery. But instead, we got this huge backstory that broke all of our hearts.
Right.
Like that could have been a very quick 5-minute scene. Oh, here's Bill. Here's his car battery. You can have it. Bye. But no, instead we got this huge expose about this character and how he found love in a pandemic. So cool.
Well, that's been very popular in TV these days. If you're a fan of Stranger Things, the charismatic character in each season will just die. Like the one you like, oh man, that's a cool character. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Very much like Game of Thrones. Like, oh, okay, cool. He's the king. Oh, well, there goes his head.
Ned Stark. Oh. So this episode, I think even to me seemed like it stood out from the rest of whatever's going on. I can tell. So having played the game, how do you guys feel about, or what are your expectations, or what do you think this episode means in the rest of the season that we're looking at as compared to the game?
As far as the Bill storyline goes, I think this was very standalone. I don't think this is going to really play into anything further. Okay. I think really the only thing that's really going to carry over is the opening scenes where Joel is explaining things to Ellie, and that's kind of like building their relationship to be a more father-daughter relationship. So obviously that will play into things, but yeah, I think this Bill thing, pretty standalone. And I think it's honestly going to probably stand out like a sore thumb, like in the best way possible, because I don't think further episodes will be as intricately emotional as this one was. Not that other ones won't have emotional moments and emotional storylines, but I think how detailed they went into Bill and Frank's relationship, I don't think it's ever going to get that emotional again. I think they will in subsequent seasons, because if you know the storylines from the second game, it does get heavy like that. But I think for this season, it's going to be, I don't think there's really going to be any carryover.
Yeah, it's more like a stepping stone into seeing how far Joel gets and throughout the journey. Because, when we see him again, he was already dead inside.
Yeah.
Like he picks up that kid, throws him in the fire, no problem.
Yeah.
Right.
And
No problem. Yeah.
so he lost his daughter. Then he loses Tess, the second episode. Then he loses Bill. And you can see him like he walked outside. He wanted to cry, but then he was like, you know what? Got to move on. And it's like he's going to go farther and farther down. And it's just like I said, another stepping stone to see where he's going to go character wise.
So that is a good point. Yeah, I guess the Bill death may weigh on him going forward. So I guess that's how Bill could tie in going forward. Because I didn't think about that, because he has lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
Most recently Tess and now Bill. And I think he cared about Bill more than he let on.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you saw a similar type of person in him too.
Yeah.
You know, like they kind of demonstrated that when they're having dinner on the front lawn. You know, they kind of understood each other. And so, yeah, I think you're right on that. That's definitely going to weigh on him more.
So to wrap this up, you mentioned that lunch they were having in Bill's neighborhood. And Tess was there. That was a surprise. We weren't expecting to really see her again. And that was a flashback scene. It was like, I think it was 16 years in the past, which means Tess and Joel were together for at least 16 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was not really emphasized up until this point. We just figured they worked together, but we weren't really sure how long. So if they were together for 16 years, he probably cared about her a good bit. So that's probably weighing on him a lot more than we realized until this point.
Yeah.
Again, another excellent example of showing, not telling.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
because when he goes back in the house, he's like, hey, number one thing we're not going to do is talk about Tess.
Yeah.
Don't want to hear it.
Right.
Yeah, I like that she keeps coming up.
Yeah.
And very quick conversations like that.
Yeah.
Like it was not like, oh, she died and we're never going to talk about her again. It was like Ellie keeps mentioning her and Joel keeps shutting her down. So I think that will be playing pretty heavily as we go forward.
Yeah. And his ultimate like beatdown throughout these 3 episodes out of like, how many is there? Like 8 or 10?
9?
9?
9 episodes.
9 episodes.
Okay,
Okay, so
Christian, you gotta let him know you're going to be asking these questions.
Well, I was going to say is that the emotional factor that we talk about between Ellie and Joel will definitely come out because he's already beaten down. So this is going to get him to the point to where she is just not a pawn to his ultimate goal is finding his brother.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting going forward.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and give our scores and use this to get any final thoughts you may have. So Jason, since you have not been here, just as a reminder, we are giving updated scores as we go throughout this entire season. So it's not episodic scores. It is an overall score that can change after each episode. So Josh wanted to make sure I mentioned his score since he's not here. His up-to-date score is a 5 out of 5 still. And he's giving it 5 satisfied lives out of 5. And I'm right there with him. Nice. I'm also giving it still a 5 out of 5. I am unchanged so far. Christian, you're currently sitting at a 4 after 3 episodes now. What are you feeling?
Okay, so yeah, Nick Offerman saved it for it. Jason, I don't know if you heard last episode that kiss took me out from being a 5. But yeah, I'm gonna go up to a 5.
Nice. All right, Jason, since you have not been here, this is your first time scoring it. After 3 episodes of HBO's The Last of Us, what are you giving it so far?
I think I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
I just got a look from Corey. He just went. Corey just gave me
I was thinking you were going to say 5 out of 5. I had hope.
Yeah,
no. So still go up.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying about earlier about the tired trope of zombie stuff. It's like you kind of know the formula.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was very good. But at the same time, I kind of want to see what they're going to do that's different.
Yeah. I get you.
Which I feel that's a pretty good score for someone that has not played the game, but is familiar.
Yeah.
Well, our updated score, including all 4 of us for the first time, HBO's The Last of Us, after 3 episodes, is sitting at a 4.88 out of 5, which,
nice.
Not bad.
Not bad.
It's not bad at all.
Pretty good.
So we will continue to have this discussion at the end of each episode through the rest of the first season of The Last of Us. So the next 5 episodes, we will continue discussing this show, but also be on the lookout for our Ant-Man review, which is going to be on episode number... I'm trying to pull up my spreadsheet as fast as I can. I lost it. Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we'll be discussing on our episode
Ant-Man 3.
Ant-Man 3. I've been putting Ant-Man 2 in my spreadsheet this entire time. It is Ant-Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, our episode number 45. So our February 21st episode, we'll be discussing that. But before that, on episode 44, I'll be discussing the new Hogwarts Legacy video game. That's my next one coming up. So that's all we have coming up soon. So we'll be continuing news discussions and anything else that might happen. We have James Gunn's DC announcement for his at least first phase of the DCU.
He's got one more day.
Come on. So hopefully on our next episode of this podcast, we'll be discussing what's next for DC.
Hopefully they get out of that dumpster fire.
Right?
It's dangerous.
Throw a little water on it. It's either going to be gasoline or water. We're going to see how it's going to go.
Before this happens, any last minute expectations or dreams for what you guys want to see in this announcement?
My dreams were crushed when they got rid of Cavill.
Yeah. I mean,
Jason has no dreams. All right.
I kind of want to see a new Superman. Like who they have. Don't care about plots.
So you'll think they'll have a casting?
Yes.
Okay. Bold.
That's high hopes.
Bold prediction.
Very high hopes.
All right.
But, James Gunn hasn't let us down.
I don't think we're going to see Green Lantern. I think Green Lantern's going to be in there somewhere.
He can't not.
I think tomorrow, as of this, actually, I guess when this episode airs, that announcement will probably be happening. So
probably
Tuesday, the 31st,
maybe
be happening.
We're always overshadowed by something. Gosh.
Yeah. All right. So as we wrap up this episode and look forward to that James Gunn DC announcement, what should nerds be doing in the meantime, Jason?
Oh, well, heck. I'm going to suggest that they eat, sleep, and nerd.
Take it easy, people.